I told Bill if they move my desk one more time, I'm quitting. I used to be over by the window, and they moved me 3 times already this year. And if they do it one more time, I'm out of here. I used to have my own stapler, too, and then when I moved back, they made me give back my stapler. But Bill told me I'm supposed to have a stapler, so until I'm told different, I'm just going to take a stapler. And if they make me give it back, I'll set the building on fire.
Oh, hello, Milton. What's happening? I'm going to need you to go ahead and move your desk again. So, if you could go ahead and just get it as far back into that corner as possible, that'd be terrific.
But
that way we'll have some more room for some of these boxes and things we need to put in here.
Well, okay.
And, there's that stapler I've been looking for here. Let me just go ahead and get that from you. Thanks.
Well,
okay, so if you could go ahead and just get to that as soon as possible, that'd be terrific.
Well,
all right. Thanks a bunch, Milton.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, but I'm going to set the building on fire.
Well, it is I, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner, back with you, not only me, but with our producer friend, our co-host, our saving grace, our voice of reason, the man who reins me in, and the man who keeps this show reigning supreme. Ladies and gentlemen, also of It's Trivial, I give to you the one, the only Grant Fletcher.
Well, thanks for that very so kind introduction from you, Joel. I'm excited to be a part of the Eargasm and help fill everybody's ear holes with this show from week to week. I mean, look at us, though. We're a couple of good-looking dudes with really great voices. I think we could take over the world.
We could indeed, man. I mean, we've got opposable thumbs, and that gives us a distinct advantage over Pinky and the Brain, who I'm sure eventually did get to do the taking over of the world in their own right, as they always sought out to do. So, again, we've got pretty faces, social graces. We make good choices. We've got awesome voices. And like I said, we've got between the two of us 20 fingers and 20 toes. What else do you need to walk the earth like Cain? Or at least govern it like Glenn Jacobs?
That's right. I mean, I don't know. That gives us a pretty good leg up over most species out there. What do you think your first decree as King Gertner the First would be?
My first decree would be every day should start and end with an eargasm. And even though these are only coming out about once a week, that's still doable for the foreseeable future, because honestly, be honest with you. I mean, lie to me, but don't lie to yourself. If you haven't listened to every episode of every iteration, every volume of the 69-minute Eargasm, number one, I mean, that's like, is your life, is your world, is your little society that you've crafted for yourself, is it such a deprivation tank of sorts that you would want to do that to yourself? I don't know why you would. You don't need to, though, because for the here and now, not only are there these episodes that are going on linearly with Grant, but there's in history it was called the Middle Age, like the Dark. So we could the he who shall not be named. There's the That Guy Files, and that's the first 8 episodes of Volume 2. But even before that, if you go back 2 or 3 years, if you go back to like 2015, 2016, when we were with Cult of Kayfabe and the 69-minute Eargasm first started, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 episodes, which means we had over a dozen great guests, and I mean great guests, and really did some cool stuff. Shows formatted slightly differently. It was more straightforward, but co-host then was Swole Brolic, who there was nothing straightforward about at all. He was goofy. And we really did have some unbelievable guests. Hugo Savinovich, One Man Gang, Bruce Hart, Exotic Adrian Street, Luke Hawk, Stevie Richards, Christopher Daniels, going outside wrestling a bit, huge wrestling fan, but going outside the wrestling business per se. Our very first guest on just our second episode of Volume 1, Judah Friedlander from 30 Rock, from Wet Hot American Summer. He was even in a Dave Matthews video back in the day, all over MTV. So everybody knows Judah Friedlander with his crazy baseball hats and all the different messages on there. Good friend of mine. So yeah, man, until you've listened to all of the eargasms, it's easy, like 2 scoops of raisins, to start your day, end your day with an eargasm, because you can just do that until you've gone ahead and done the damn thing. But what makes it super easy is that we are going to cut these up into little concise, bite-sized morsel pieces. We're going to take the ball, the Joe Rogan experience ball, and we are going to run with it. And eventually, in case you don't have a full 69 minutes or so to get yourself an eargasm, and by that I mean get your life right. If you don't have that kind of time, we're going to break it up into more like 6.9 minute pieces, and we are going to put those on my brand new YouTube channel, which until it hits 1,000 subscribers, it's that brand new that until it hits 1,000 subscribers, we do not have a short enough little tiny URL that I can even be able to give it to you right now. It would sound like, it would sound like a password. It would sound like alphanumeric, like letters, numbers, symbols, some foreign stuff, pops, clicks, buzzes. About it.
Yeah, I mean, if you missed out on the previous iterations of the eargasm, there definitely would be a void in your life, but that's okay because you're listening now, and so this will fulfill you. This will make your life that much richer, I should say, moving forward. Yeah, I don't have the silver tongue that you have, Joel. I'm sorry. I'm just sort of the guy in the booth over here.
I graduated to platinum about 6 years ago.
Oh, excuse me.
But I appreciate. I understand. But the love is the same. I understand where you're coming from. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, on top of that, though, if you can't throw out the YouTube channel right here in the audio version, but if they were, say, to follow you on Twitter, they'd hear all about it.
Oh, you can't avoid it. If you follow me on Twitter, why aren't you doing that? Oh, you are? Oh, great. So let me just remind you so that you can tell your friends, you can share. It is at Stud Muffin Says, like SM, like a capital S. It doesn't matter. You don't even, you know what? Let me make it easy for you. It doesn't even matter whether you capitalize it or not. It's STUDMUFFINSAYS, like Simon Says, but instead it's Stud Muffin Says. That's the Twitter handle. Throw your damn hands up. It's the anthem. Go get rewarded, get wisdom, get entertained, have a laugh, goof off, enjoy yourself. Stud Muffin Says we are approaching 10,000 followers on the Twitter with under 10,000 tweets made. That's the equivalent of like the old McDonald's sign outside where they were like, we've flipped 1 billion burgers, we make fresh beats daily, that kind of thing. But long story short, hit up the Twitter, because there you're, of course, going to get bombarded with what? For example, the Instagram. You're going to find out my Instagram handle because I prostitute that thing all over the Twitter. How else would people go look at those pictures? But then in addition, you are going to get links to the 69-minute eargasm, which has its own Twitter page. So you can follow me at Stud Muffin Says. You can follow this show at 69-minute eargasm. And yeah, man, and you'll definitely find out about the YouTube page, which includes the eargasm. It includes unbox. It includes cooking videos. It includes just life, man. As we're recording this, Super Bowl is happening later today in a couple of hours, later on in the afternoon, early evening. And man, if I don't act a fool, have some food, turn the camera on, and just put that phone in my face and just get myself together.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm a little conflicted myself. You know, I'm from South Louisiana.
All right. That's okay.
What happened to the
Saints.
Saints.
Good guy. Don't matter. No, I'm kidding. I love y'all. Well, actually, aren't you from more Baton Rouge than New Orleans?
Yeah, Baton Rouge.
Yes, I don't know. I love New Orleans. Baton Rouge. We ran Baton Rouge a couple of times when I was in ECW, but aside from being in the annex at the Centroplex, and it's cliche, but aside from the ride from the hotel to the building, I don't really know much about Baton Rouge. That's where LSU, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. And Baton Rouge is it's a wrestling town. This used to be the hub of Mid-South wrestling back in the day.
True.
So
True words never spoken.
All those guys used to live in and around Baton Rouge. So, we're pretty proud of guys like the Junkyard Dog and what that. Actually, I was there at one of those times ECW ran the Centroplex over here. I was probably like 13, and I begged and pleaded with my dad to take me to this wrestling show, and we're there, and it's great, and we're having a good time, and everything's going well, and then all of a sudden, out walk the Dudleys, along with a one Joel Gertner, and then things just got pretty tense there.
For fuck's sake, I believe it.
But it's all good, we look back on it pretty fondly now.
Yeah, man, for the love of wrestling, dude, it was unbelievable. We wanted to be heels, and a lot of ECW, don't tell anybody, was patterned, I think, after Mid-South wrestling. I mean, territories like Mid-South, to me, and World Class, whether it was their utilization of music early on or just, real kind of heavy, serious angles, especially with the heels. But, long story short, a lot of that kind of down south, like Texas wrestling, that's what was missing up in Philadelphia. So I think that's what ECW and even its precursors like Tri-State, I think that's what they tried to bring to Philadelphia through the Indies. So, yeah, I believe it. And if that's what we were able to accomplish and turn the show on its ear like that, then more power to us, I guess.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, there's definitely something special there. And that actually would bring us to our first guest here on this episode today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so let's get out of your hair. And ladies and gentlemen, why don't you listen as I go one-on-one with a colleague, comrade, and co-conspirator of sorts, an ECW contemporary, and a man who made me jealous because he superseded me as being the youngest person in the locker room on the ECW roster. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me and Amish Roadkill.
Whoa. It is I, the lyrical miracle, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner, your host for your excursion through the 69-minute eargasm. This week, episode 10 of the 69-minute eargasm. And we are going to be speaking with an ECW alum, a colleague of mine from back in the Dizzy, which was the mid and late 90s and the early 2000s, if you're keeping score. This gentleman actually younger than me, so there was a time where I was the Das Wunderkind of ECW, and then Juventud Guerrero was the first one that came in 2 months younger than me, and he took that title from me. Kimona Wanalea also was a number of weeks or months younger than me, and this gentleman here younger as well. But now we're all older and wiser, and still a little bit, man, way excited about that Extreme, dude. I know it was your big break as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Roadkill, first and foremost. How are you doing, Roadkill?
Chickens. That's how I'm doing.
That's how you're doing? Chickens.
Chickens, that's right.
Dude, you got more over with that back in the day, nothing. Dude. By doing nothing. You got
just
by
being
saying
fat
chicken.
And saying one word.
That's it. And just and pantomime wringing the necks of chickens, or it could have been very awkward masturbation. I don't know. I mean, that that's where my head was at in those days. Why fisting. Lie? It still is, but huh?
I said double fisting.
Double fisting. Yeah, you were double fisting chickens, man. It was bizarre to watch, but it was.
Imagine if we try to do that today. How many people would jump all over it and try and destroy it?
Yeah, no, I don't know if you can get away with trying to hand destroy poultry in this era of, baby, it's cold outside, not being like...
Yeah, it's a different time. I actually pitched to Paul one time, hey, how about I kill a chicken on live TV, and then I'll come back as the Amish machine. But he kind of shit all over that.
Kamala ate a chicken once.
Sika ate a chicken.
Sika ate a chicken. Kamala, thought ate a chicken, but they might not have shown him eat the chicken. They might have come back to him, and he might have had feathers on his face. Wasn't that him, or was that Sika? That was him, right?
If I remember correctly, it was Sika on one of the Saturday Night's Main Event when he wrestled Hulk Hogan. And in the promo, Fuji was talking, and Sika was actually biting the neck off the chicken. But it wasn't
alive. Not like Boston Garden Market, where it's like catering and it's like the chicken's like off the Foreman grill or whatever. Not like that, but like a real chicken.
Not chicken rice for the boys.
Let me tell you something. We had on cable, dude, when I was growing up in Brooklyn, there was this one like down the dial, like channel, 114, like nobody, even back in the day, in like 1990, 91, when I was catching it when I was in high school, nobody was watching it because there was even then enough TV on that you wouldn't bother with it. But there was a channel called the International Channel. And like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like 3:30 in the afternoon, I'd be home from school, whatever, and they would have Filipino wrestling. It was called Pinoy wrestling. And they were showing like outdoor wrestling from like a shoe mall, and like it would rain. It was like that WWF Puerto Rican show from '86 where like it was raining buckets, but they would wrestle in the rain anyway.
Was that Andre and Stud and Monsoon was the referee?
Dude, I don't remember. I don't remember. There was definitely a monsoon, dude. It was in the air. It was coming down vertically, up to down, man.
If I remember correctly, it was Andre the Giant and Big John Studd were in the ring, and Monsoon was the referee, and it just poured. And
I don't know any wrestlers that have ever wanted to twist their ankle while they were wrestling, but if they ever did want to, that would have been the perfect show to do it on. I don't know. It was mind-boggling to watch. I've seen clips from it. I haven't seen the whole show. I think it's on the network, that show, the WWF one. But on this Pinoy wrestling, it was the same thing. They're outside in a shoe mall pouring buckets. So I remember that. But what I also remember is one of their wrestlers out in the Philippines, they ate a live chicken. But again, on the International Channel, so like, I saw it and maybe like 5 other people, I don't know. And now about it.
It didn't air in the Philippines?
This stuff originally aired in the Philippines, I'm guessing, man. But it was bizarre, dude. It was whacked out.
Have you ever located any of this footage recently?
I've looked. It's one of those things that I look for. I got a wild bug up my ass, and like every 2 or 3 years, I'll be like, "Oh, that Pinoy wrestling was fucking crazy. I should see if it's around." And no, but I haven't done that recently. I might have it because I was trading tapes. So somewhere, like one of my 500 tapes might be like 4 hours of Pinoy wrestling. But it was dreadful. It was as bad as you'd think it might have been.
I have tons of VHS. When's the last time you actually plugged one in?
A VHS?
Yeah, when's the last time you popped in a VHS tape?
We have one. We have a VCR active and plugged in, ready to go. But the last time I actually used it and popped in a VHS tape, 2 years, maybe 3 years.
I'm probably longer than that, man. And I have the original Coliseum videos, the original 60s, the first ones.
I found a tape the other day. I was going through some stuff that was at my grandmother's place, and I found what I actually did first was this guy, Mr. Coliseum, who's on Instagram and stuff, and Twitter, I think, too. I've gotten a couple of things from him, and one of them was like a really nice size poster, Coliseum video poster that there would be at the video store, and it's for the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. One side of it, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in color, and then the back of it is like that whole set because they used to come out in sets of 3. So it was like Steamboat, whichever best of the WWF volume, and like one other one, maybe grudge matches. So something like, I don't know, let's call it like WF 17. WF 018 and WF 19, right?
Yes.
So now I get that thing in the mail. I get the poster. So I'm like, cool. And I think a lot of them right now are on the network. But on the same day that the poster comes in the mail, I'm going through this one bag, and it's got tapes. And I look. And like you said, what I used to do when I was trading tapes, you weren't supposed to, but, I'd put a piece of Scotch tape over the part that was popped out of the commercial tape, the retail tape, and I would put in, for example, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And with a little piece of Scotch tape, VCR to VCR, and I'd put a blank, in the right deck, and I would record it onto a blank tape, and now I can bring it back to the store. It's been rented, it's been paid for, but now I have it. And I found, the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat copy that I made from the video store on the same day that I got the poster for it in the mail. It was really weird. But yeah, man, so I've got a bunch of those, too. The first thing...
Yeah, I think we all did the Scotch tape thing. I think one person learned it. We used to get them from the library or the video store. When I was on the road with ECW, that's when the mom and pop video stores were dying because Blockbuster Video was around. So I would go to these stores and I would buy the original WWE video cassettes and built my collection that way.
First place I ever met any wrestlers was one of those mom and pop. It was, you're from Long Island originally?
Yeah, and still am.
Okay, so did you guys have Captain Video and Royal Video, or no?
I think Royal Video kind of sounds familiar, but no Captain Video.
So both of those were kind of, before Blockbuster.
Yeah, we had a bunch of Renegade Outlaw ones.
Yeah, and they would try to create chains. They would, some of them would try to be bigger than others and be a little local kind of franchise and have 8 or 10, up and down however many miles area. And so the biggest ones near us that weren't just one-off mom-and-pop offshoots were Captain Video and Royal Video. And Captain Video one time in, 86 had the Killer Bees come in and do a free autograph signing. And that's
pretty cool.
Those are the first wrestlers I ever met when I was 10, was Blair and Brunzell. And have become very friendly.
Did they have the mask?
Blair, believe it or not. So huh?
Were they wearing the mask? Could you tell them apart?
They were not. Yeah, no B Magic. No, they weren't wearing them. I can't remember at that time if gimmick-wise and storyline, if they were really relying on them or not, because there was, I think, a period of time where they did wear the masks and another period of time where that wasn't, so much a part of what they did. But,
one of the times I remember was a 6-man tag. One they did with George the Animal Steel, and he had a B mask. And there was another time where they did it with Coco Beware, and Heenan was on commentary, and you can only imagine what came out of Bobby Heenan's mouth.
George Steele's just magic. We had Kamala on last week. We had Kamala on episode 9. And did you
tell him you were white Kamala?
I did, at the end. I didn't want to use it to get over, but I had to get it in at the end just to show him how much I love and respect all of his work. But in preparing for it, I did watch George the Animal Steel versus Kamala. And
from the Garden.
Dude. Or from Boston? It was I think they went around the horn with it. But
I think I saw it from you're right,
from the Garden.
MSG or Boston Garden, yeah, one of those.
Yeah, I might have seen the Boston version, I don't remember, but dude, yeah, magic, dude, because he would do all it took to get under Kamala's skin and fluster him was George Steele parroting, just monkeying, he would do the patting of the stomach and the yelling and everything else. And I think Kamala couldn't understand why this white, chubby dude with a green tongue that was kind of, unique and special was doing those things. And it would make him cover his ears and run over to Fuji. And it was awesome to watch. But, it was probably awesome back in the day. Also, as a kid, it was awesome. But if that match happened today, it would be torn to pieces. Yeah, I mean...
By critics.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending how you measure, by critics, by trolls, yeah. There's an element out there that I think wouldn't appreciate. But, I don't know, that's an interesting subject. I wonder, Family Feud style, survey style, just 0 to 100. I wonder what percentage of our listeners would agree with you and what percentage, or claim to, and how many wouldn't. Because I think a lot of people who might shit on it aren't ready to really honestly come forward and say that they would. They would claim that they wouldn't, but then they might. I think a lot of people, they have their personal favorites who they'll allow to be performance artists, and then when they see performance art that they're not ready for, or from somebody that they don't think should be doing it. You know what I mean? It's just very...
They'll tear it apart, yeah.
Yeah, like you say, there's a lot of criticism out there. There's a lot of people... In a sense, it means the business is strong. And in a sense, it's like... It's weird, man. Sometimes, if you're really adept at the internet and social media, you can almost see in somebody's social media feed when they're trending towards criticism and when the shoe is about to drop. You know, I'm very thankful that I had Prodigy Interactive Service when I was growing up, and I'm very thankful that I got into the internet like in the late 80s, because it gives me a head start now to where, like, I can look around on somebody's Twitter and Instagram, and I can just tell if they're having a bad enough string of days that eventually they're going to start putting some nonsense out. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yes, it kind of ran around in circles, but it kind of makes sense.
Like, such is life with me, yeah. Welcome to my wife's world, yeah. Well, dude, what else? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. And not to make it sound like it's the dating game and you're bachelor number 2, but in essence, like, we know you're from Long Island. We know, obviously, you're talking about, like, tape trading and putting the Scotch tape over the Coliseum video. Obviously, you're probably into LJN. We're talking about George Steele, Kamala. So, like myself, obviously, you're incorrigible. You're a wrestling mark. Your exposure and your entry into the business obviously is never gonna, satisfy the fact that you're just a complete and utter mark of professional wrestling, and that's fine. I'm not judging you, but tell us a little bit more about, little baby Roadkill and little child Roadkill, and how did you fall into all this mess, man?
I fell into it because I wanted to. My Polish grandmother used to love WWF at the time. We would go over her house on weekends, and she would wake me up to watch WWF, probably Wrestling Superstars at the time. It's probably like 11 o'clock on Channel 9 on Saturday nights. And her favorites were like Tito Santana and Ivan Putski for obvious reasons, and she was a big babyface fan. And then I saw Hulk Hogan, and I was just hooked from there. So that was the baby Roadkill, I guess, introduction to professional wrestling. And then I actually attended WrestleMania II.
Wow. How was that? How was that experience seeing WrestleMania 2 from, you saw it from Nassau Coliseum?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think I was either in 4th or 5th grade, and I believe it was on a Monday. So I came into school Tuesday, like, beat.
Yeah, I believe it.
It was amazing.
Was it cool watching? Now, the 2/3 of the show that you saw on Nassau probably went first too, right? Like, you guys were the first ones to go live. So now you're watching the last 2/3 of the pay-per-view on a Monday night when you could be home watching primetime, but you're at WrestleMania 2 at the Coliseum, and you're watching the last 2/3 of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have cable, so I didn't have primetime. I would have to watch it on tape from my friends.
I didn't get cable until '89, so it wouldn't have been an issue for me either. But what was it like watching 2/3 of the show just in an arena full of people that are all amped up because they just got, Roddy Piper and Mr. T live and all that jazz?
That was actually my first experience of people cheering for the heel, because they were chanting for Piper and basically shitting on Mr. T. Nassau Coliseum was pro Piper all the way.
I believe it.
But to answer your question, watching the video, as a kid, you don't care. I'm watching it live as it happens. I'm not waiting to get results next week or on the weekend on Superstars of Wrestling or Wrestling Challenge. It was just awesome. And then Hogan retaining at the end was even better.
Yeah. How old were you? You were like 9 or 10.
I want to say so, yeah. I was born in 76, so that makes me, I'm like 42 now, so yeah.
9 or 10. So, dude, when do you start getting, like, how do you make your foray more inside the wrestling business? I know you are one of the guys that went to Taz's school and the ECW gym, and we'll get to, and if that's your only wrestling school, and if you didn't train before that, then definitely start off there. But if there's anything that does come before that I wouldn't know, let us know when you make the transition from just watching wrestling, maybe, getting news online or a newsletter. Like, let us know all the stuff that kind of separated you and moved you into a different level from your friends, let's say, at school, who were more casual fans.
Well, I started training in 96, So before that, there really was no internet. It was kind of non-existent besides eBay. There's no Facebook, there's no social media. It was a different world. But I graduated from Ward Melville High School in Long Island in 1994, the same high school that Mick Foley had gone to. He graduated in 82, I believe, and his father was the director of phys ed. So when, everybody's picking their careers in high school, what are you going to do after high school, what are you going to do here and there, I was like, I want to be a professional wrestler. My goal was to go straight to Stanford and just go from there. I had no idea. I wasn't smart to the business. I never read any newsletters or anything like that. I just appreciated it for what it was. But I also knew it was two people working together to put on a performance. So I was telling people around school, my teachers, that I'm going to be a pro wrestler, this and that. While some people laughed and discouraged it, other teachers kind of motivated me to pursue it. And one of my teachers, I think it was actually my photography teacher, said that, hey, Dr. Foley, Mick's father, used to be the director of phys ed here, and his secretary is still in place. So I got in touch with the secretary and talked to her. She had passed along my number to Dr. Foley, which was Cactus's father, who in turn passed on my number to Cactus. And I'll never forget it. There was one episode of Monday Night Raw I was watching. It was like it was the Quebecers in singles against the Steiner brothers. I think it was Scott Steiner against Pierre. And he had called my house and talked to me for like an hour and gave me like a brief summary of what the professional wrestling business is like, what I could look forward to, what might happen. And then he had talked to my parents for another hour and then got on the phone with me again. So he was my first person in the wrestling business that I actually talked to, and he was all positive. He said, go to school, get a good backup, have something to back yourself up with, and then get back to me in a couple of years. So when time came for me to get back to him, in like 94, he said the ECW school, might have been 95. I think I was just in college. The ECW school in Long Island had opened up. So he had gave me the number for Todd Gordon, and then I ended up getting in contact with Taz at the school at the House of Hardcore in Long Island. And that was my start there.
So now tell us, as you're starting at the school there, so you're training, you're having classes, you're learning chain wrestling and all of the fundamentals while you're there kind of, just with the ring and your fellow students. Tell us, that part is probably a little bit, and not to call it routine. Nothing in the wrestling business is routine, and I hate to call anything like just run-of-the-mill routine at whatever because it disrespects it. So I think I'm coming at this, like you said before, kind of from a reverse angle to get to where I want to be. So I'll actually backtrack. Tell us about the stuff early on in your ECW school days, right, your House of Hardcore days. Tell us about the stuff that wasn't what happened at the school with your fellow students in that ring on Long Island. Tell us about what you're doing kind of at the shows and whether it's like ring crew, street team, team Taz. Give our listeners a sense of the kind of extracurricular things you're doing as one of Taz's students at the ECW school.
Well, when it first started, we got trained, and when we were kind of ready, he took some of us on the road with him. So we'd come and we would just watch. And then he put together Team Taz, which we were all part of, myself, Chris Chetty, Danny Doring, and there were a couple other students who'd never progressed past the learning level and into the ring. So Taz started us with Team Taz, and then something happened with the ECW ring crew where it kind of faded out, and we took over somehow. So we drive to every town, set up the ring, work out before the show, possibly have a match during the show and break down the ring and then drive to the next town. Some nights we have triple duty. We do Team Taz, maybe wrestle a match, and then ring crew. And it was different depending on every night, depending on, who showed up, who didn't show up, if they wanted to see our progress, give us a chance in this certain town or not this town. I don't know. The politics is something I never really got involved in. I just showed up and I was happy to be there. Plus, I was 19 at the time, so whatever you want to throw at me, that's fine. I'm on the road living my dream.
Some of these nights, you're doing triple duty. Let me tell you something, you're really doing quadruple duty, because by the end of the night, I don't know if you could call it the night, it's after 12 a.m., it's the morning really, and then here you are maybe operating the Condacam, or maybe being, I know you guys had more fun, I think, you guys, the students. I don't know if it's because you were younger or you had nothing to lose but you guys, I know, had some of the most fun, sometimes more than the boys, more than the vets, the grizzled vets, who are kind of just out there to, just make a living and kind of, you weren't tied down, like you said, 19 years old, and I know what that's like because I was 20 when I started and 25, I guess, when it was over. But I mean, tell us a little bit about was road life like just everything that happens after the last bell rings, after the ring has been put up, when it's time to just have 4 or 5 hours, 8 or 10 hours, whatever it is, just to let loose, be yourself, decompress before go to sleep and do it all over again. Tell us in your mind, for a 19-year-old kid, what that was like, and if it was everything you expected or if it wasn't exactly what you expected coming into the business.
I came in with blinders on. I just said, let me just go and live it, you know what I mean? Because this is what I wanted to do. As far as us having fun, we were kind of under the microscope sometimes because we had fun, like, legally. Like, we'd go play laser tag at a mall in Poughkeepsie. I think it was Poughkeepsie. They were fans at the laser tag place. They snuck us in through the bank. Like, I think, you put your ATM card in and you were able to get in the mall. And the guard at the mall was cool because he knew we were wrestlers and whatnot. We ran around, played laser tag. It's like 4 a.m. But that's when business was done. The only times we really had time to enjoy was like the week of a pay-per-view because we only had one show. So say we drive down to Florida like early, get in there and set up the ring and set up the banners and everything. We had we had some leeway. But during a normal week, it was one town to another. I remember there was like 1 month where we were on the road for like 3 weeks in a row. We were like South Carolina, then we were like Louisiana, and then we were at like North Carolina again. It was different every week and week to week. I went in with no expectations and just I had my eyes open and just enjoyed what life threw at me at the time.
Do me a favor, take me through, I mean, I don't know, I'm approximating, but let's call it the last year and a half. Take us through the last year and a half of ECW. You're not a student anymore by any stretch. You're hitting your prime. Take us through you and Doring, our tag team champions of the world, and take us through your eyes the final days of ECW.
Well, we were only tag team champions for I think I want to say like a month or two, probably like 2 months tops, because we had won it at Massacre on 34th Street from the FBI, and then the next pay-per-view was the other one at Hammerstein where we wrestled Hot Commodity in the opening match, and then there was nothing else after that. We had only gone to the arena once after that and wrestled the Baldies. That show never aired. And I forgot the rest of your question. I'm sorry. I lost my...
no worries. No, the second part of the question was just the final day, and essentially you're talking about it, the final days of ECW and what it was like for you when ECW kind of was folding and closing up shop.
The final day I didn't attend because there was like Arkansas or something, if I remember correctly. I had called Dreamer the night before, and I said, hey, listen, I can't afford to go on the road. And I go, thank you for all the opportunities, but I can't afford to go on the road and spend money when there's no guarantee that there's money actually coming in. I can't afford to go to Arkansas and pay for a rental car and gas and tolls and hotel and food and just live on like $100 draw. So I actually started bouncing that night, and I called. That was the night before Arkansas. But yeah, towards the end, it was kind of like the rug was pulled out from underneath us all, because I'd started in '96. And the company closed around 2000, 2001. So I put in my time, and it was just about to be my time. The whole bunch of guys, Danny Doring and myself, and C.W. Anderson, and a bunch of other guys that, okay, now it's our time to shine, and now there's no company anymore. So it's kind of like, depression, without a doubt. But, life moves on, and you got to keep moving forward. But it was, you put in all that work, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's gone.
And then you wind up with, I think, WWE version of ECW.
Yeah, but before that, we had a tryout, which got shit on by Gabe. Gabe had shit on us for our tryout. We went to Madison Square Garden, which is the first and only time we get to wrestle the Garden. It was Danny and I against the FBI.
Okay.
We were sitting with Bubba and Taz, and Bubba says to us, he goes, "Hey, when's the next time you're going to work the Garden?" So he goes, "Go out and have an ECW style match," which was apparently the wrong advice. But we did it anyway. And we had an ECW style match. We came through the curtain, and we got yelled at by 4 different agents. But we worked the match. Madison Square Garden was chanting roadkill. They could never take that away from me. That actually happened. But when we came through that curtain, here's Bruce Pritchard. Here is Michael Hayes, maybe Malenko too, and maybe one other agent. Al Gurria too. He was our agent, specific agent for that match. And they were just shitting all over everything we did. Meanwhile, we got a huge pop. It doesn't make sense.
Well, what did they think you get too much for the opener, and now the boys have to chase it and one up you guys, or did they just not like what they saw, just in general? Period, all else being equal.
We were like the third dark match. I think Crowbar wrestled before us, and I think Jerry the Wall wrestled before us too. Mm-hmm. They were looking at everybody because that's when WCW just folded too. This was like 2001.
Yeah. Right.
So the wrestling pool kind of shrunk. Instead of 3 different places to work, there was only one real place to work. So they were looking at everybody. Everybody didn't have spots in WWF. They were looking at guys from WCW, guys from ECW. And I don't know, maybe we came in with targets on our back. I do not know the political structure of that. But, yeah, I don't know. That was just our experience. But Madison Square Garden chanted roadkill, and that can never be taken from me.
Now, did you do the pay-per-view in 2005, the first of the 2?
Yes. Danny and I were brought in, and we did a promo, and then the promo was cut for some reason or other. And then later in 2005, we got called for a tryout. We went down to OVW for 2 weeks. And, I'm sorry, before that, we had a couple like dark matches throughout.
Oh, I was going to say, what should we know about, were you active in the business, and what were you doing, let's say, between 2001 and 2005? Between
2001 and 2005, I was surviving. I was trying to get my head out of my ass into depression, because it was rough,
But no, dude, and we were all there. But were you doing the indies, though? Because some people did the indies, and some people just ducked out of the business for a handful of years.
I was the latter. I ducked out for a couple of years, unless the indies were paying well, because I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to risk getting hurt on an independent show. Plus they weren't really. Plus, because like I said, the talent pool was so huge at the time because there was so many guys looking for jobs. The indies were not paying. It was more cost efficient for me to bounce at the bar 15 minutes from my house and make what the independents were offering in a night. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I lost passion for it. It just wasn't the same. Like I said, we were about to take over the ECW. That whole young generation that underneath those main guys like Sabu and RVD and Taz and the Dudley Boys, we were that next level. And it could have been ours, and they kind of just wiped out from underneath us.
But then now it's the middle of that decade, right? Like now it's like 10, more like 15 years ago. You're still in your 20s, maybe 30, who knows? But older. wiser and the better for coming through ECW, and you got your tryouts. And so you actually, outside of ECW, outside of Roadkill, Amish Roadkill, and all that, because like you say, at Madison Square Garden chanting Roadkill for your ECW, they can never take that away from you. But then you wind up being back full-time in the wrestling landscape because now you're within developmental. You're in the structure, you're in the system, and you've been given a new identity, a new character as, I think, Anthony Pulaski, right?
Yes, I was actually signed in...
So walk us through that, because I think some people might be unfamiliar with it or not know that Pulaski is Roadkill and Roadkill is Pulaski. But take us through that period of time and let us know what that was about.
Well, I'm pretty sure the smart marks on Wikipedia have already ruined that, but that's okay. I was signed by WWE in 2005. Like I started to say earlier, Danny and I had a tryout in 2005, summer 2005, where we went down to OVW. We were there for 2 weeks, which is like the normal trial period. We did a couple house shows, we did 2 TVs, and then we wrestled at Six Flags down there, Kentucky Kingdom. After that 2-week period, they had signed me, and they did not sign Danny. For what reason, I couldn't tell you. That's the politics of WWE. So I moved down there in October of 2005, and then ECW resparked. You know, WWE resparked ECW on Sci-Fi and whatnot. So they were kind of using me in OVW, but not really. And then they brought me up for the TVs on Sci-Fi. So I was part of the Battle Royal with, I think Sabu went over the big show. I think it was the last 2 guys. And then the following week I wrestled Sabu, which is one of my crowning achievements because I got to wrestle one of the original ECW guys who made ECW what it was on the WWE product. After that, I had wrestled the night of CM Punk's debut on ECW on Sci-Fi. They had flown me up to do a cardio test. And then I ended up working Stevie Richards for the first time in front of Vince. And as soon as the match ends, the referee's like, hurry up, Johnny wants you in the back. Vince wants to see you. So I'm like, oh shit, what do I do now? Go in the back. John Laurinaitis is waiting by the curtain. Says, come on over here, Vince wants to talk to you. I sit down with Vince and I have a conversation with him. He's like, I like what you do in the ring. I don't like your look. We're going to grow your hair out, cut your beard off, put you in a pair of trunks, and we're going to go from here. 2 weeks later, I go down to OVW again. I did a mock of Dusty Rhodes. Full hair. You know, I cut the beard off. I did full hair, polka dots, scars under my eyes. It was leading up to a tag team match where it was going to be, I think, Cody Rhodes and Dusty against Casey James and Aaron Idol Stevens down in Kentucky. So they brought me in as kind of like a heel Dusty Rhodes type thing. And that very angle, I jumped down from the ring, landed on my 2 feet, and I severed a disc in my spinal column. It was a bulging disc that I had, and it severed. So I was up for 3 days. I couldn't walk. Meanwhile, 2 weeks before, Vince's like, we're going to bring you up to TV. We're going to put you on Raw or SmackDown. We're going to have a gimmick for you. Then my body crapped out on me. I had a bulging disc, and like I said, the impact from landing on both my feet with all my weight severed the disc, and the disc was lodged in my spinal column. It was actually cutting off circulation to my legs. When the doctor, I finally went to the doctor, he put in fluid to see if for the X-ray, and there was no dye going through my legs below.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went in for surgery there. I went in like 6 a.m. Doctor said he opened me up. The piece flew right out. Sewed me up, and I was walking around 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a quick recovery time. But I had a hole in my back, so that had to heal. And they gave me like a 6-month period of where I couldn't work. So I was kind of put, in the on the DL, as they say. So it's kind of like, here's my opportunity, and then my body craps out, That wasn't fun. But I had time to change the gimmick, grow my hair out, get the trunks, do everything you wanted to do. So I came back as Braddock. Because that movie, I forget what the name of that movie was. A Cinderella Man. with it was like the newer version of Rocky, but really good one. I don't know if you ever saw Cinderella Man. James J. Braddock was the main character. I forgot the actor's name, but I remember hearing Braddock, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come back as that name first. Then Bruce Pritchard had come down, and they come down and see you, and they want to hear you talk and cut a promo and this and that. And he goes, well, we want to make you Polish here. It says, because you're supposed to write down your hobbies, what your history was, your lineage, your family history, and your lineage and whatnot. And I'm half Polish. So he said, hey, we'll make you Polish. Vince looking for like a Polish guy. So I remember them the next week sending down a list of Polish names, which are absolutely garbage. So I came and asked my mom. I gave her a call. I said, what's Bob's maiden name? She said, Geslak. I'm sorry, Geslak was not her maiden name. Geslak was her real name. I said, what was her maiden name? She said, Pulaski. So, and my Jaju, which was my grandfather, his name was Anthony. So I put the two together and made Anthony Pulaski, which fit because technically I was both anyway. That's my middle name is Anthony anyhow. So it all worked out in my head. And then I was supposed to be brought up to television. I had got a call from, they okayed the name. In fact, I think they trademarked the name as well, Anthony Pulaski. I had a couple dark matches here and there. And then Michael Hayes called me and said, hey, we're going to put you against The Undertaker at Unforgiven. We'll put you on TV for 4 weeks, and then you're going to work with Taker, and then we'll see where it goes from there. The week after I got that call, his body crapped out. He had torn his bicep, and then they didn't do anything with me from there. I had gone back to developmental. They kind of like forgot about me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up breaking my neck in developmental. Wow. I was wrestling Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal, whatever you know him as. We were wrestling in front of like 200 people at an armory in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. And do the spot, we called it one way where I was taught, as the guy my size, you got to be a crash pad for the guy on the floor. So it was a dive spot. So we did this thing where he tilt the world head scissors, I take the bump, I roll out to the floor, he hits the ropes, jumps, dives, and we land chest to chest. I catch him, right? Spot comes up, I roll out to the floor, he hits the ropes, jumps over the top rope, and he starts sinking. So I panic. I go, oh crap, this guy's going to land on his head and break his neck. So I took a step forward, and he decided to cartwheel on me. So I caught his body upside down, and he cartwheeled on my neck and crushed the disc. So I had what's known as a double burner, the reason why they outlawed the spear in football. So drove home, I took a shower, and it felt like there was fire on my hands as the water was hitting it. And I went to physical therapy. The pain went down to it was 6 fingers at once. It was 3 on each hand. It went down to 4 fingers, went down to 2 fingers, and then it went away. Now, in that recovery time, they were making budget cuts and their yearly chops, so I ended up on that list. And then I went for further checkups on my neck, and then I realized my neck was broken because I think one of the doctors had come down and said, "Hey, Johnny wants to know how you're doing." So I was like, "Hey, tell him if he needs it for Mania, I'm ready." Like 2 weeks later, I got the axe. You know, the proverbial pink slip, or your best of luck in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
So WrestleMania was coming up. I contacted him after that. I said, "Hey, listen, my injury is worse than I originally thought. I got hurt in your ring. What are you going to do for me?" And luckily, they extended my contract to cover the surgery and the recovery time. So that was after they let me go. They sent me a new contract, and they did right by me. So I can't complain about that at all.
That's cool.
And then I stayed down in OVW. I was learning all the behind the scenes. I was writing shows. I was booking shows. I was doing commentary on some of their DVDs. I was trying to learn everything I possibly could behind the scenes because I still want to be part of the business. And then one day I woke up and said, I don't want this anymore. You know, it was like a relationship ended. I just woke up and said, nah, this isn't for me anymore. Packed up my stuff, came back to New York, and fell kind of like right back into my old life that I left before signing with WWE in 2005. So I moved back to New York in 2009, I believe. I think it was October 2009. So exactly 4 years I was down in Kentucky.
Roadkill, this is a hard question, I think, to answer because, you know, is it like a vacuum or is it like butterfly effect or is it like, do you have the past to rely on when you make your answer to this? It's different people, I think, would answer this differently, but I guess just, you know, take it for what it is. So you come into the business in 96, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were, what, like 22 years old, right? Or 20?
I believe I was,
right? 19.
I was 20, I believe.
Yeah,
so,
19, 20.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
So you come in around like 95, 96. So let's dial it up 20 years, right, to where it's just a few years ago, right? And let's say it's 2015, 2016, and you, Roadkill, you know, however this is possible, you are at that time 19, 20 years old, right? In other words, let's say you're not 42 right now, you're 22. And a couple of years ago, you were 19. And you're making your debut, or you're thinking, or you're just living as somebody who enjoys professional wrestling and up until that point just as a fan. Do you effort like you did in real life in the 90s? Do you effort a couple of years ago at 19 or 20 to get into the wrestling business? Do you make a lot of the same steps? Do you prefer to get in as Roadkill or under a different persona? Like, what do you think you would do if you were just kind of coming out of your teenage years and going into your early 20s 2 or 3 years ago? What would you do the same? What would you do differently?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because when I came in, it was a different time. You know, a completely different time, completely different way WWE does business. Especially now, it's a different time because there's all this competition coming up. So I don't know. Well, you're talking like 3 years ago too. 2015. What did I can't even think of what the wrestling landscape was like in 2015 because I really haven't watched.
I think it was starting to get hot. I think it was starting to get hip again in pop culture. I think the indie scene was starting to become a bit fiery, and I think there's a lot of people with disposable income that are happy to see wrestling in their town that's not just WWE. I think a few years ago, I mean, I picked it because it's 20 years after when you started, but
gotcha.
But I think the middle of the decade, a few years ago, I think is when there was kind of a resurgence as far as our cyclical business, and thank God it's picking up a bit from where it had been maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. But like you say, man, yeah, I mean, we came in, the 90s was just a different time, and I think a lot of that's the internet, and I think a lot of it's just, like you say,
it's cultural. Just everything, culture, you know, people's exposure to the business, what they know about the business, you know what I mean? It's all different. Plus, it's WWE has taken, and this is years ago, they're public, right? So they've taken the circus sideshow and made it corporate. So now you have to answer to sponsors and all these other people who have interest in the company and this and that, you know, and if you do the wrong thing on television, you lose a sponsor. It's a different animal now. Whereas the 80s, it was a boom. Look at how many people were sober in the 80s? You know what I mean? Yeah. Look at all those guys that all the cocaine stories, the drinking before the match, drinking during the match. That wouldn't fly these days. But that's all the stories people want to hear from the 80s. You know, it's just a completely different, I guess, world, universe, however you want to describe it. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to answer your question because now do you turn back the clock and I'm 19 with the experience, or do you turn back the clock and I'm 19 with no experience in the business?
There's the thing. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough question to answer because, yeah, right. I mean, how do you know what you know, and do you know what you know, and all that? It's true.
Yeah.
True, and
when I started,
it makes the difference.
When I started, I was 19, and I was the only one that made it through the House of Hardcore that looked like me. You know, there were no other 300-pounders that made it through the school. They all quit because I had heard that Paul had told Taz and Perry, who were the trainers there, that I only want a handful of people to come out of that school, and I watched hundreds of people come through that school and get run out. There were only 4 graduates, It was myself, Chris Chetty, Danny Doring, and later Tom Marquez, the Prodigy. He kind of got a little exposure at the end, but not really. You know what I mean? He's another guy that got shafted too, because he put in his time and paid his dues in the company, and he never really got a chance there either. I think I left your question.
No, that's so. Hey, but looking forward though, now we're not going to look back. 20 years. What if you're 19 or 20? Looking forward to the next 10, 20. Looking forward throughout the rest of your life, and essentially talking about the present now. Let us know. I mean, who is Amish Roadkill now? What kind of stuff are you into? And parlay that into using this as an opportunity to talk about where you're going to be and where people can find you, like online, social media, and all that.
Well, I only have Facebook. I don't really get into social media because I don't want to get involved with the trolling, the politics, the whining, the complaining of like Twitter and and Snapchat and all that stuff. I'd rather just keep on Facebook, and I vend now. I sell collectibles and figures and stuff like that at shows. I'm not there to collect a payday. I'm not there to put my gear on. I'm not there to talk down to people because I have more experience than them. I'm just there to make my money and get out. Does that make sense? Where like some people have to go to the shows and kind of like throw their weight around because they've been in the business for so long. I don't need that. A lot of times I don't get recognized. I don't get recognized by people I used to work with, which is fantastic because that means I'm completely incognito. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. Cause I don't,
no, it doesn't. No, yeah, the first time I did see you vending, not in any kind of way, good, bad, otherwise, indifferent, whatever, but it just, it did take me aback, because some guys are out there, and again, nothing against them, but they're out there twice, you know what I mean? You got a guy like Papa Tongo or a guy like Crusher Khrushchev, Demolition Smash. There are guys that'll go out there and be two different gimmicks on the same day. So in that aspect, if what you're wanting to do is vend, wrestling collectibles and paraphernalia and whatnot and make $1 out of 15 cents, I mean, like you say, it's refreshing whether people do, if I were you, it's kind of win-win. People recognize you, great. People don't recognize you and don't want to troll you, great. You know what I mean? It's almost, but yeah, the first time I was surprised, like I say, in just a neutral way. And just happy to run into you again. And since then, I've seen you at a few conventions, Icons in Philly at the arena, most notably. But tell people where you're going to be, maybe first quarter of the year, first half of the year here, 2019. Where are you going to be so that people can either see you to say hey or just see you to get something from you that they might otherwise need from somewhere else? Just what's the last thing you'd want us to know before we let you go?
As far as first quarter of the year, I don't have any shows lined up right now. No collectible shows. It's kind of the beginning of the year is a slow period. People just got hit with Christmas and they're paying off the Christmas bills, so people really aren't spending because they just got milked for Christmas, as they say. So the next real show, what I've been doing the last couple of years is Rhode Island Comic Con. This will be my I want to say 6th year I've done it, which is it's a great experience. I call it like a workation. I don't know if you remember. You remember Jason Zub? He was from House Hawker. He kind of looked like Shawn Michaels.
Zuby?
Yes.
Yeah.
He owns Boston Tattoo Company now. So he has 3 shops up in the Boston area. So I go up and visit with him and stay by him. And it's about an hour commute to Rhode Island. So it's kind of like I go up visit with him and kind of work in the same weekend. We catch up. It's a lot of fun. That's like my yearly thing that I do now. Other than that, I really don't have any, if you want to find me on eBay, look up the Darth Giant, DarthGiant. It's all one word. And the picture is actually Fezzik, Andre the Giant as the Dread Pirate Roberts. That's how you know it's me. But on Facebook, I'm the ECW original, Angry Amish Warrior Roadkill. And you'll know it's me because it'll say fictional character, which is what I was. I say to people all the time, and I don't mean it, I'm not trying to compare myself to Superstar Billy Graham in any way. Do you remember when Superstar came back and cut his hair and he had the karate gimmick?
Yes.
Not many people remember that. I want to take the Roadkill character and leave it on the shelf. Whatever good or bad memories people have of it, I always want to leave it alone. I don't want to just go out there to get a payday. I don't want to ruin that memory, of some old timer just coming out to get a payday. I don't need that. I can't afford to get hurt. I can't afford to hurt anybody else. Crowbar has tried to get me in the ring for the last 2 years, I want to say. And every time he asks, I tell him I'm retired.
Very cool. Understood. Well, man, yeah, anybody who's listening, too, I mean, if you're looking for some cool wrestling collectibles, get on eBay and look up Darth Giant. Find Roadkill, because, dude, I've seen your table at a few different conventions, and you do have some stuff that's cool as hell. There's a lot of great stuff, and you are a good person to talk with about that kind of thing. You are a good person to deal with, and just a good person in general. So anybody listening, yeah, I mean, if you're in the market for some wrestling collectibles now or in the next few weeks, set some money aside, hit him up, Darth Giant, see what he's got. He's got a lot of cool shit, I know, when that table is at some shows that I've been at. So make sure you look at
much more than wrestling collectibles. I'm into all kinds of action figures. I've been collecting for years. And,
True.
And anytime you hear Danny Doring do an interview, he complains about how many Walmarts I used to stop at. Because back in the 90s, in 98, we didn't have Walmart on Long Island. So I'd have to go out to like North Carolina where there's 24 hours on the way home and stop and see what I could find. And they would joke and rib me about it all the time, but now that stuff is paying my bills.
Good stuff, man. Hey, Roadkill, thank you so much for being on. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks for being honest, open, and thorough, man, and just walking us through. I think a lot of people were probably curious what it was like, being such a young dude coming into ECW for the second half of it, and, at first being a student and then rising to the level of World Tag Team Champion. Went ahead, did that WWE developmental also, and WWE, ECW, and everything. Like you said, worked the Garden. A little bit of everything, man, and you really did put your body and your time and your life on the line to make your dreams come true after just watching it on TV with your grandmother and everything. In a lot of ways, a lot of parallels and a lot of correlations I see to myself, and it was really it was cool to listen to you talk about stuff that has kind of happened to me, just, similar but different, and listen to the way you went through it and everything else. But I really do appreciate you taking the time and being on.
No, thank you very much for having me. Everybody walks in different shoes. You can't really criticize anybody because you've never walked in their shoes. You don't know what their day-to-day is like. You don't know what their life experience is like. You don't know what on any given day. You don't know what's going through somebody's head, what got them to that point in their life. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I don't think any of this information that I've shared here has been shared in any kind of interview. So I haven't done any shooting. I think I've done like maybe 1 or 2 shooter interviews, but no one's asked these kind of questions.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, man. Thank you so much. And we'll be back with more Eargasm after this. And well, as my cat wakes up from a deep slumber, she's like, what the hell is that? We are back with the 69-minute Eargasm, and ladies and gentlemen, at this time, this is an honor for me because I started watching wrestling, let's call it in the early to mid 80s, maybe as late as 84, 85. I try to pinpoint it sometimes. I think it was maybe the summer of 84 or so, give or take, not sure. Because once I started, immediately Coliseum Video came on the scene, and I was already, as I was watching every week going forward in time, I was also watching this stuff from before in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, going back in time, becoming a student. So it's hard to pinpoint because it's hard to remember what that first stuff I saw on TV was. But now that I've bored my guests to death, here's why I bring all of that up. It's because I started watching in the early to mid 80s, and now I'm concentrating. I had been watching a lot in 1980. 1980 has become 1981, All-Star Wrestling on the WWE Network. And a gentleman that I have on with me right now that I'm about to introduce, I believe got his TV start right around early 81, right around the stuff that I'm watching now, where you can see a guy like Jim Duggan just starting out in squash matches against Sergeant Slaughter, stuff like that. And it was a real cool time prior to nationalization. On the phone with us right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the one and the only, although he portrayed more than one character on TV, and we'll get to that, but the one and the only Danny Davis. Or do you prefer Dangerous Danny Davis in your real life?
Well, I prefer world-famous bad guy referee.
There you go.
Dangerous Danny Davis.
There you go. World famous bad guy referee. This guy was a heel, man. Such a heel that they had to take him from being the heel referee, and they had to go ahead and make a manager and a wrestler out of him and a personality in his own right. Now, that was nothing new to him. We're going to get to all of this, but what I'd want to do is start every good story where it starts, and that's the start. And you have a book out, and I don't want you to, we only have about a half hour or so from here, so definitely we're not going to get to, not even a good portion of what's in your book. The book really runs the whole gamut about your life, your career, and everything else. But just to kind of touch on it and give people a sense of why they need the book in their life and need to go get it, let's start with your life from the beginning. Tell us about you as a kid, if you'd like, you growing up, you prior to your foray into professional wrestling, and talk about stuff, for example, like, were you always a fan? Did you watch on TV growing up?
Okay. First of all, the name of the book is Mr. X, The Life Story of Dangerous Danny Davis. And it's not a traditional wrestling book that other people have written. And the reason for that is I didn't want one to be like everybody else. As Dangerous Danny Davis, Mr. X was, I want to be different. So it took us about 2 years to come up with a concept for a book. And it's a book about living your dreams and how only you have control of that, and how you, with ethics, work ethics, and hard work, you can achieve any dream. Because a kid such as myself, being a street kid, and I mean a street kid, it is a little different than today, obviously. But in my day, to be a street kid, it was very tough. I was a street fighter. I survived by my wits for many years. I did some things I'm probably not, and really not proud of. However, life is what it is. But the book is based on, and it has some information on my tenure as a wrestler, as a referee, etc., and the people I met along the way, and the people who helped me out, people who actually took me under their wing and helped me through my career. But nobody can do it except yourself. So, a dream doesn't become a reality by magic. It takes a lot of hard work and sweat, determination, to achieve what you want to achieve. And, when I became Mr. X after being a referee, I thought that I had accomplished my dream of becoming a wrestler, professional wrestler. Well, little did I know that later on down the line, I would become even bigger as Dangerous Danny Davis, as you know. And it's, my life is all about gratitude for everybody that helped me along the way. And by that, I mean the people I worked with. To work with your heroes. When I was a kid, I never watched wrestling because I was a street kid. I didn't have a television or anything like that. But I went to an arena one night and watched wrestling, and I knew at that point in time that I would someday be in that ring as people would be watching me, and everybody said, you're never going to make it. What background do you have and all this stuff? But I was determined, and it worked out for me, and then I was watching my heroes, George Steele, Baron Cicluna, and all those greats, Jay Strongbow, Victor Rivera. I don't know if anybody remembers any of these people, but I got an opportunity as Mr. X to work in the ring with my heroes. I even worked with Bruno Sammartino and his son in a tag match one day, in a TV match, as Mr. X. So you can only imagine the feeling I had to be in the ring with people like that. So to not live your dreams is a waste, and you only fail if you quit. So we always remember that. And this book is not only for kids, but it's for all people who have a dream and haven't achieved it yet. The worst thing in the world for me is when I go and talk to people and they say, gee, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. I never did this. I wish I had done this. And I just look at them and shake my head, because it's a possibility. Even to, if you haven't done it, then try and do it. And you don't have to be the biggest superstar. You don't have to be a Hulk Hogan. Just achieve a goal. Think about that. WrestleMania III, one of my biggest high spots in my wrestling career. 98,000. We broke records, and here I was not too long ago, a street kid, and here I am in one of the biggest stages in wrestling history. And in that era, and in that time, and to be part of that, it's never going to happen again. It was once in a lifetime, that whole wrestling era that I was in, the Hulk Hogan era. It was one of the greatest, in my opinion, of all times. You know, you talk about the Vern Gagnes, and you talk about all these great people that started wrestling back in the day and brought it to what it is today. But to be in that era, in that time, in professional wrestling, there is never going to be another time like that. The fans, the wrestlers, the promoters, everybody was clicking. Everything was going great. And I was just proud and happy to be part of it. And I'll never see it again.
Tell us a little bit more about how you became part of it. Tell us a little bit more about how you got your break, how you got your foot in the door. Tell us a little bit more. You're saying that it was an arena show. It was a live event that got you interested and that got you focused and saying, I could do this and I want to do this. But from there, what are the steps that you took and how did it work out so that as the 70s are becoming the 80s and as, you know, WWF, even when they were regional, man, even in the territory days, they were on fire as a territory. People from Egypt and everywhere would try to come in and work for the WWF. You happen to be right in their kind of geographical wheelhouse, living in kind of Massachusetts, New Hampshire area. But what did you do? Who did you meet? And who did you talk with to turn somebody's head and have them invest in you? And how did you get your chance?
Okay. Well, it's very easy. When I went to that arena, I came back to that arena, you know, afterwards, and I went to other shows, and I found out that if I hang around outside, sometimes you could help guys, the wrestlers, when they showed up, you could carry the bag to the door, they'd give you a ticket or they'd let you in. And back in them days, it was, you know, wasn't like it is today where it's all the security and stuff like that. So it was pretty easy to happen. Then I ran into a guy who was putting the rings up in these venues, you know, the high schools and the town halls and Jack Witchies and all this place. And I asked him, he asked me one day, we're about three of us standing outside. He said, you guys want to help me put up the ring? I'll be happy to give you a ticket for the show. The only deal is you have to be here at the end to help me take it back down. So I said, sure, you know, so that's what we did. So the other guys beat it after the show and said, the hell with this, and didn't help put the ring down. But I did, and I stayed around. So he said, look, you know, where do you live, et cetera, et cetera. We got to talking, and he would meet me at places, and I would put the ring up, and then I got to taking jackets back and forth, you know, the ring jackets back to the dressing room. I wasn't allowed in the dressing room. It was a big kayfabe then, and it was real serious then, so nobody broke that, you know. So eventually he got fired, and Vince Jr. asked me if I'd like to take the ring around and put it up. And as much as I've had, you know, a little bit of experience, I jumped right at it. Now, see, being a street kid, when you have an opportunity, you know enough to seize that opportunity and make the most out of it. Well, that's what I did. So I never missed a town. I never missed a shot. I was always there with a ring. The ring was always up. And then, of course, I got into other things. I got into refereeing because I had needed more money, and I couldn't make what they were paying me for putting the ring up, which was, you know, very minimal. But I was just happy to do it. So I kept my mouth shut and waited for my chance. And I went to Vince Jr. one day and I said, look, I need to make more money somehow. You know, is there something else I can do? And he said, to my surprise, how about becoming a referee? Bing. Yes, sir. Right away. When do you want me to start? That night I went out and bought a referee shirt. That night I went out and bought pants and a pair of sneakers to be prepared for the next day because I was going to make my debut. And I made my debut down in New Haven, Connecticut at the New Haven Coliseum. I don't know if even know if it's there right now. In fact,
they took it down. Yeah, I think it's not.
Yeah, and in fact, Howard Finkel, one of the greatest announcers in the history of wrestling, started the same night with me there. He'll tell you that he started in New York, but he's full of shit. He started with me. God bless him. Howard Finkel is one of my best friends, yes, and he helped me along the way. So that started my referee career. And then I, you know, of course, every night with these guys, being in the same town, traveling, and sometimes, you know, riding with them, or sometimes they ride with you. You get to talking. They start going to the gym with them. And to make a long story short, someone took me under his name. His name was Rick McGraw. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers Rick McGraw, but he was not quite a big star, but he had a little push. And he took me under his wing, and I used to travel with him And he would take me to the gyms and teach me how to work out and stuff like that, and nutrition and vitamins and all that stuff. And we used to do shows, spot shows, not related to, well, it was related to the WWF, but it was a different promoter. His name was Tony Altamore, and he would do shows on weekends that we were off, and he would let me come in as Mr. X, and that's how Mr. X developed. And I would work with Rick McGraw or some other guys, and that's how I learned to wrestle. And then, of course, things went on from there. I went to TVs when we used to do Springfield and in that area, in Allentown and stuff like that. And I would work. I didn't work in Allentown. I take that back. But in Springfield and Pittsfield, we used to go there, do TVs. And I would get under the mask, and they'd put me in a ring to do jobs, of course. And eventually, someone noticed me. And they said, boy, that guy's pretty good. So I got to work with all my heroes. Again, the Bruno Sammartinos, the Lou Albanos, the Valiant Blackjack, all those guys, and I was in my glory, man. I thought, wow, I really did something great here. Well, things went on, and when I refereed, I went out, I called the match as legitimately as I could. Now, see, that meant that I would not favor the babyface or the heel. I was straight down the middle, but people started noticing and said, Jesus, no referee's ever done that, because you're not supposed to. A lot of referees didn't like the heat from the fans, so they would always favor the babyface so that they would, kind of get over with the fans. I didn't care. And someone noticed that and said, look, this is different. And someone came up with a concept as to do the thing as the heel referee, and that worked to get heels over against baby faces without hurting the baby face a lot. They could always blame the referee and stuff like that, and it just snowballed. And someone came up with the idea. I got a phone call one time. I was in Pittsburgh, and they said, no longer dangerous Mr. X, you are now dangerous Danny Davis. And I didn't know what the hell that meant, but they brought me into Florida. We did the thing with the tag match with the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs, and I was on my way, and I became dangerous Danny Davis. That's the short story of it. But there's a lot more ins and outs that in betweens that I would rather just leave for your imagination and read the book, and you'll find out a lot more about it.
It was great with the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs. For me, as a kid getting the TV in Brooklyn, you were on my radar a bit before this, but where you really kind of took off as a heel ref for me was Savage and Santana with the IC title change at the Boston Garden. I got to imagine that was some of the biggest heat as far as heel ref-wise. I got to imagine that was a really emotion-loaded situation as far as the fans were concerned. I mean, what can you tell us about that night?
That was kind of my hometown. That was my area, Boston, Mass. I was glad that happened there. And, from that point on, it was just, I had a lot of heat. I had more heat than guys that have been working a long time out of doing stuff like that. It had never been done before. And it's just like anything else. You hear about it today. Guys ask me, will you come down and do the Danny Davis thing with a referee and then go in and do a match and stuff like that? And I do it on occasion. I go in and do it. But once it's done, the first time it's done is great. And everybody wants to copy it and try to make money of it. And they probably will make a little money. But it will never have the reaction that the first timers, when it happens the first time. And it happened at a great time, and again, back what I said earlier, it happened when it was in a time where wrestling was at its peak, as you pointed out. It was at its epic. You couldn't. Everything was clicking, man. It was anything you did, you had to do exactly. You had to do it right. It had to be done right. And if you didn't know how to do it, or you weren't able to do it right, they would just, put you aside and say, "Look, it's not working. We're going to go a different direction." But it worked. And again, it goes back to the opportunities, being a street kid, knowing that this is it, man. This is it. If you mess this up, it's over. So take advantage of it. And that's what I did.
The business had really long legs at the time, man. It was like, you were saying, and it's just, like, obviously there's going to be action figures. You know, if you've got He-Man, then obviously it only makes sense there's going to be wrestlers. Obviously there's going to be videotapes because it's so, you know, fashioned around television and programming and stuff. But then, you know, you're walking into the store and you're seeing jigsaw puzzles, you're seeing board games, and you're saying to yourself, obviously, you know, if you can go into a toy store and instead of just see action figures, you can see 5, 7, 9 different things, then obviously there's a level of interest in wrestling at that point in time that either there just wasn't before that or wasn't even possible for wrestling before that. I think technologically and as far as the media goes, there's just so many great partnerships that wrestling was able to get involved with that, like you say, it was really maybe, you know, there was the Gorgeous George kind of golden era, which was the beginning on TV in the 50s, but maybe since then it was really just the second golden age of wrestling. So you were very lucky, I think, to be involved with it that early.
Yes, it was fantastic. Now, you touched on the early guys, you know, the way back, you know, the Dr. Grahams and all those guys, the Killer Kowalskis, and you know, without those guys, you have to keep this in mind. And I tell these guys today, the young kids today, when you see an older wrestler come in from the past, you walk up to him, you shake his hand and say, thanks, man. And you're thanking him because he set the stage. You're standing on his shoulders. He made this possible for you to be here. Even today, as you know, up until today, without those guys before you, there's nothing here. Guys like me, there would be no WWE. There would, like the Hulk Hogan's and stuff like that. And the guys before that, I am so grateful when they walked into the dressing room. You know, I met them all: Bugsy McGraw, the Blackjack Mulligans, you know, the Valiant Brothers, and all those people. The Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Lou Albano, Freddie Blassie, all those guys. They set the stage for everything that's happening throughout, right to today. Without those guys, and so we honored them. They honor, and the guys today, the kids today, have no respect. I've walked into dressing rooms and they don't even acknowledge me. You know, it's very disrespectful. You know, I don't know what it is, but I walk into these shows at these independents, and they don't even know who. You know, I talk about Howard Finkel, and I'll talk about, like, you know, and they just, I don't know, it's just a different time, I guess, or a different type of person that's in this wrestling business now. Because when I first went to wrestling matches, these guys, there was nobody under 6 feet tall, there was nobody under 250 pounds, 220 pounds. They were giants. Blackjack Mulligans, think about that. Don Leo Jonathan, how big was that guy? Andre the Giant. Even Bruno, you know, they're big, huge men, you know, and they were made even bigger, you know, from TV and stuff like that. And you know, it's just I think that's half why people respected me is because I respected every one of these guys. You know, I always ask for advice. I always look at the Vachons from Canada. You know, that Paul Vachon, he helped me tremendously because I worked with him a lot as Mr. X. He would tell me to do things that, you know, to him that, and these guys were just so great to work with and so professional. And of course, you know, there was a little tough back then. Harley Race, you know, just to mention a few. And you touched on it. And one generation is responsible for the next generation. And I think that we brought wrestling into the 21st century. And like you said, with all the merchandising and stuff like that, it's fantastic. It really, really is a fantastic, business to be into, I guess.
Yep. We're going to branch off, Danny. We're going to ask some pretty random, ridiculous, weird questions. We do this now and again. And this is just to kind of get inside your mind and see a little bit of the Danny Davis that we didn't necessarily get to see under the mask as Mr. X or as a heel in the stripes as dangerous Danny Davis. Here's the first good question that I found for you. Now, we know that dangerous Danny Davis, the less somebody would have followed the rules, the better. You would have definitely favored somebody who didn't follow the rules in place. But here's a question for you, real life Danny Davis. You discover a beautiful island upon which you may build your own society. You make the rules, okay? Not to call you God, but you discovered this island. You're a Christopher Columbus type, a Marco Polo. You're going to build a society, which means that you, not heel ref you, just you, and it might be fun after you do that version to do the heel ref version as well, but you found this place, you make the rules. What is the first rule that you put into place?
Wow. What the hell is this? That's that kind of question. Okay. I guess the first rule would be no bullshit. Everything's got to be straight down the line.
That's
no crap. Yeah, if you want to live here, you got to be right down the line. You got to be honest. You got to be straight and no bullshit.
That would be a hell of a society. Hey,
Yeah,
a lot of people call Facebook a society, and if that rule was in charge, if you had that on Facebook,
that rule, there would be no Facebook. Yeah, I get a kick out of that Facebook thing. Yeah,
that's a good one, man.
Yeah.
Now let's do this. We were talking about wrestling on TV, so let's talk about this one. Now you go from being Christopher Columbus to being a producer. Now you've been given the opportunity to create a half-hour TV show of your own design. It could be wrestling, it could be sports, it could be entertainment, it could be none of that, okay? A half-hour TV show completely of your own design. Tell us a little bit about it. What might it be called, or what is its premise?
It will probably have my name in the title somewhere. Like,
all right. Fair enough.
Dangerous Danny Davis, world famous bad guy referee presents. Okay? And what I would do, and I think this would be a good concept, I would take wrestlers from the past. I mean, if I could, bring them back, like the Don Leo Johnsons, the Blackjack Mulligans, and the Grand Wizards, and the Billy Grahams, and Dr. Graham, and Bobo Brazils, and all those guys, George Steele, and to each generation, I would try and pick a certain group of professional wrestlers that wrestled in bonds during the Depression, the Ani Skolins and that group, and then the Bobo Brazils in that group, and then the Bruno Sammartinos in that group, and then the Hulk Hogan's in that group, and have debates and stories of how they had to live and how they had to work, like those guys that worked in the first. And I found out, and I talked to them, they were working for nickels and dimes. They'd work in a barn somewhere, and in that time during the Depression, they were the only people making money. And then the next generation. Now there were generation gaps in between there where there was no money made in wrestling. It was very poor business. It was very hard to get by. Different territories back then weren't making any money. I mean, people hated to go there because there was no money. So these different groups of people, all in one room with me as the master of ceremonies, and popping questions at them or just listening to some of the stories that they had, and document them, and then put them in a book.
That's a good one. That's interesting, yeah.
That would be a dream of mine. That would be something nice. Yeah. But you can't do that now.
Danny, one night you wake up, you hear a noise, you turn on the light, and you find that you're surrounded by mummies. So you've got your eye on them. Turns out the mummies aren't really doing anything. They're not there to hurt you. The mummies are just standing around your bed. What do you do?
Shit my pants.
All right.
I grab
bullshit too.
That's right. And then probably ask them what they want, and just remind them that I have a weapon in my hand. So to find out what they wanted first. And if it's a fight, then we got to go for it. If it's something pleasant, then we'll do that too. But we can talk and negotiate whatever and find out what they're about and what they want. I guess that's what I would do. And then if I could ease myself out that door, past them.
For lunch today, accidentally you ingest some radioactive vegetables.
Oh Jesus!
No, they were there, and they were good. They were good. What's even cooler is that they endow you with the superpower of your choice.
Yeah.
What's that going to be?
A superpower?
Yeah.
Mind reading. Read people's minds. Yeah.
Oh, mentally.
Find out what they really think about you. They smile in your hand and piss down your neck. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Yeah, did I can do that basically anyway by looking in their eyes, but most people are full of shit. Most people want something from you, or they're full of shit, But I would read their mind.
You would be able to be your own police department on that beautiful island that you founded.
That's right.
Rules.
No bullshit, man. I know. I can read your mind. You're out. To the gallows.
So now the constant absorption. Listen, so the constant absorption of magical moonbeams, it mixes with these radioactive vegetables, right, that you've consumed, and it's giving you the ability to resurrect the dead, famous person of your choice.
Oh boy!
Which late celebrity, if you could only do this once in your life, though, which late celebrity, somebody you've known or somebody you've never known, would you bring back to life if you had that card to play one time?
Okay, now I'm going to have to do some thinking on that. So I think that I would bring back a celebrity. It has to be a celebrity?
Famous person, yeah, somebody.
Famous person.
You might know, or be able to look up.
I think John F. Kennedy, to find out who really shot him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's always been. Yes,
that's
I think
good one, because that's 2 and 1. You get to bring him back, and then, like you said, you get to
find out
from him who it was that shot him.
I think that prick who succeeded him had something to do with it, but who knows? But we'll find out.
You know what I've always... No, go ahead.
No, I think that'd be a good thing to clear up, because that's always been a pet peeve of mine, I've been to Dallas. I've been to the place where he was assassinated and all that, and I've read books and got tapes, and the guy, the Gouda films, and all those guys. Did I say that name right? But anyway, I've got all that stuff, and I think that I would really like to find out the truth.
Yep, that's it. All right. Well, let me ask you this, Danny. Do you prefer pets or do you prefer humans?
Humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck them pets. Those cost you money. You got to walk them. They got to shit on your floor. Well, some humans do that too, but you can more or less, you can't kick the shit out of a pet, but you can kick the shit out of it. No, I'm just kidding. But
I was going to ask you whether you were a dog person or a cat person, but I got to.
No, I'm a person.
Person. That makes sense. I got one for you. And we've asked this at least 6 or 7 times. On the podcast so far. We asked B. Brian Blair. We've asked Baby Doll. We've asked a bunch of people this.
Yes.
If cockroaches can survive nuclear apocalypse,
right,
and chemical warfare,
right,
what the fuck is in a can of Raid?
Jesus. Yeah. Wow.
What about that?
Well, no, I never thought about that, but best way to combat roaches is step on the fucking thing. I wear Western boots, and they can't even hide in the corners, they tell me.
I love it.
Because they're pointed. I get them in the corner too. But yeah, who would think? Well, yeah, who would think what's in a can of Raid if they can? Yeah, good question.
Right, cockroaches are supposedly unkillable.
That's right. Well, I think most. That's right. Well, I know if it kills them, or it just stuns them enough for you to step on them. I don't know.
There you go. Yeah. That makes sense too.
Yeah.
Danny, tell us all, because the book. I was talking to Kenny Casanova, and I.
Oh, Jesus! Another great American, Kenny Casanova.
yeah. And I know he's been helping guys out with these books and self-publishing and stuff. I'm gonna get my hands on the book because I want to read the whole thing. Your story really does intrigue me, dude, and especially, like I said, now that I'm kind of going through All-Star Wrestling in '81, and I'm watching the Jim Duggans starting out with Hogan and with Backlund on the screen and with Slaughter. I'm watching Rick McGraw, who I knew very limitedly because just around the time that I was starting to watch, he unfortunately passed away.
He was a great guy. He was one of the great, he was a consummate wrestler, He always was in that gym. He was always trying, giving 100% all the time. And him and I really hit it off. We traveled together for years and until his demise there. In fact, I was with him the night before.
Wow.
Yeah, up in New York. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
No, just, watching him catch fight, because he was more of a Mid-Atlantic guy, like a Carolinas guy.
Right, yes.
The territories there.
He was from there, Carolinas, yes.
Originally, and watching him settle in Connecticut and get a real big run in the first part of the 80s,
And,
yes.
as guys like Duggan, just the new kind of early 80s crew, watching them catch fire and do slaughters, the challenge, the Cobra Clutch challenge.
If you ever talk to Jim Duggan again, just remind him when he first came into territory, he used to call me Mr. Davis. When he first met me, hello, Mr. Davis. How are you, Mr. Davis? I saw him maybe 5 or 10 years later. He said, hey, who? A whole different attitude. He tells that story quite a bit. So next time you talk to him, see if you can remember that. Yes.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yes. I remember him when he started.
But tell us a little bit for the book. Tell us.
All right.
I'm gonna hit up Kenny, and I'm gonna see if I can, whatever I need to do. It's not that I'm trying to go free, but whatever I need to do to get one as quick as possible.
Well, the thing is,
tell the people how to get one.
Yeah, you go on DangerousDannyDavis.com, and there's a link there to my book. And if you do that, then I send the books. You pay on my PayPal account. It'll bring you over to the PayPal account. And I got books at my house. And that's the way I prefer it because I can sign them right there and send them out the very next day myself. And I know you're getting them, and I know they're signed by me. If you buy a book from Kenny and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to get them signed. You will have to come to an event and get them signed for me, which is okay too. And you can like me on DangerousDannyDavis.com. Which I wish everybody would do because I want to get over 1 million likes if I can. But the book is accessible there. You can go on if you get Kenny Casanova, WOHW Publishing. There's a link there to get it, and there's so that's a couple ways to get it. And I guess you can get it on what's the other link? That'd be the way to get it, yeah. Because I would like to sign them. I like it when I get them. And I can sign them and send them out myself. As like I said, I know you're going to get them within a couple of days. If you go through the other, you don't know when you're going to get it, and it's not going to be signed.
Right. It'll get signed quicker. It'll get signed because otherwise they have to bring it to you at a convention. They might have to pay for the autograph.
That's right. Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for this week only, or maybe 2 weeks, I'm just gonna. If you buy a book, I will sign it for free. So you just pay for the cost of the book, and I'll send it out free. Signed. I'll send it signed. I won't charge you for the signing because when you go on the website, it's $15 for the book or $25 signed. So I'll pay for the book and I'll sign it for free.
Well, if you're being cool enough, that's basically a 40% discount. That's basically a way of people doing one-stop.
Well, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you on this podcast.
So what absolutely.
You prick, you better buy a book, too, and get your friends to buy them. You prick. I'll find you. You know that, right? I got your phone number. It ain't hard to run you down.
No, nobody wants that. But we are going to run this. For whatever it's worth, we're going to run this all the way up our flagpole. I'm not saying it's going to sell 1,000 books, but if it
don't, I know who to talk to.
There you go. Hey, Danny, one last thing.
Sure, go ahead. I'm having fun.
One last question about reffing, because that's one thing that, I was mainly an announcer, play-by-play color, whatever, host, and then also a ring announcer. So mainly a talker, definitely not a wrestler. But what I also did starting out, before I got my break, what I also did, just to be in there more and get experience was a little bit of reffing. I've reffed a handful of matches in my life, maybe more like 5 or 10 in my life. But long story short, I've always loved it as a science. I've always loved that aspect of the game. If you're still watching wrestling lately, if you, Danny, are cognizant of how the deal is now, where the refs are kind of like in-ring producers or agents, right, where they do have an IFB in their ear, right? So that they're hearing from the truck and have that one-sided kind of, everybody notices that. That's no secret. Without going too much into it, but just because you don't need to, just on the surface technologically, as somebody who's still watching now, can you tell us whatever you can tell us about how reffing is different now in 2019 than it was, for example, 35 years ago in 1984?
Well, see, again, and I'm going to say this with all due respect. When you're refereeing a match today, you can see the thing in the ear, as you pointed out. They're telling him what to do. They tell him not to do that or tell him not to do. Listen to me. In my day, you had to have some kind of brain, some kind of common sense. And these guys, unfortunately, don't know how to work. They want to do everything. They want to go fast. They want to speed it up. I guess from what I understand that you can't do certain things in a ring. You have to have a match, and it's choreographed to the letter. And if you vary from that the way it's choreographed, you can get fired. So the referee has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with that other than get the information to who they want to get the information to and and be there for the finish. In my day, you worked with the 2 guys in the ring or 4 guys in the ring, whoever it was. They would give you spots that they were going to do, and for you to do this while they're doing that, et cetera, et cetera. And you would do it. You know, it would be part of a match. You know, how to explain it in better terms? You would have to know something about the person, the 2 people that are working. You would have to know something about wrestling, the psychology of it, what was going on. You know, the hot tags and all this other thing, and the false finishes and all the stuff. You have to know that. Today, I don't believe. I think the older guys that are there do, but the newer referees don't know anything about that. And all they're there for is to the 3rd guy in the ring is to give information and probably tell them when to go home and sit like that. But again, that's the big difference. They don't even have to think. And another thing about it is the people in the back, the Vince McMahons, the whole McMahon family want control of everything, and that is including what's going on in the ring at all times. They have to have control of every aspect of that business, and I think that hurts the business a lot because there's no spontaneity. You know, in my day, you would do an interview. You would do it off the cuff. You would do it because, you know, you meant it. You meant what you said. You believed in what you said. And today, it's not like that. And it never. I don't think it'll ever go back to that. If it does, I think you'll find a peak or a spike in the wrestling business again.
This is a pretty obvious question, so I don't know if I'm looking for the yes or the no. I think I'm looking for maybe more the color in between the lines. But, and again, I know we've already kind of signed off and you plugged your book in your social media usually, but because it intrigues me.
No, go ahead, man. Do what you got to do. You got me now. You may not get me again. No.
But what I'm wondering is...
Especially if I don't get selling any books. No.
But what I'm wondering, like, I was going to ask it as a yes or no, and then I immediately said...
Go ahead, man.
I guess the question is, I don't know if some of the other referees might have been jealous of this. Some, maybe not all, maybe some. But it had to be, going back to 82, 83, whenever it was that you were in your prime, starting out as Mr. X, doing that at the same time that you were also refereeing when you weren't under the hood. Like you say, just the kind of, just the vibes of it, just the instinct and the guts of it alone. Working as Mr. X had to make you a better referee. And I can't think how many, maybe the number's 0, maybe it's 1, but I can't think of how many referees in the last 35 years have been at the same time referees and then on the same show working under a hood. So I was going to ask you if you thought that it helped you as a ref, but I can tell from what you've already said, and it's obvious, of course it helped you as a ref. But if you could give any more pointers as to why, because again, Danny, when you think about it, not everybody is blessed to work with a company the size of even the regional territorial WWF and be both at the same time a wrestler and a referee.
Well, the thing is like this, you know, to this day, you can watch other sporting events, basketball, football, something like that, and there'll be a bad call by a ref in a very important game or not so important game. And they'll say, what is this guy, trying to be like dangerous Danny Davis, you know, or Danny Davis? You know, it still comes up. It's 35 years, and they still bring it up, and that's quite a pleasure. That, you know, to think about that. That's 35 years ago. So the impact that I had in doing what I did it's fantastic. You know, it was a great idea and it worked, and I'm so proud of that. And when I read that in the paper or I hear that on the newscast or something, I love it. But anyway, the point you're trying to make is having the ability to do both is very difficult. I used to go in and I used to set up the ring. I'd go do concessions. I would go in the ring and referee. I would go back and change into Mr. X, wrestle as Mr. X probably after intermission, right after intermission, go back into the dressing room. I would change back into my regular clothes. I would go back into, end of the night, take down the concessions, count the books, settle up the money, go take down the ring, pack it all up, and go to the next town. So yes, people don't want to do that anymore. People have lost the enthusiasm. They have lost the dedication. They think because and it's true. They have one purpose, one thing in mind, and that is to get in there, do the refereeing, and get the hell out of there. Go to the next town and get a payday. There's no more incentives. There's no more pride in what they're doing because everything's done for them. As I pointed out before, everything is under one. Everything's under the producer's control. You have nowhere to go. There's no other territories to go to even pull something like that, or the desire to do anything like that. It's a damn shame that they took that part of the business and buried it like that. And of course, very few people. I mean, it has been done. I mean, I've seen back in my day, I've seen guys, go out under a mask and wrestle and then go out and referee. I've seen it done, but not to the extent that it was done with me. So the answer to your question is, I don't think it could be done again. I don't think there's anybody, and if it was, it would have to be someone who is exceptional in what they do. I mean, they do little things in the business today where they'll come up in a disguise. I think a couple guys did it. He come in as I don't know, but not as a Mr. X or anything. But the girls have done it. I saw a show. I happened to see one of the shows where this girl would come out fully in a mask, and then they pull the mask off in a match and found out it was one of the top heels women wrestlers, and it worked a little bit. But no one's going to ever be able to duplicate. As I said earlier, once you've done it, once it's been done and it's done properly and it was done to the extent that it was done with me, it's not going to mean anything anymore. And I think they know that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know why more so than because again, WrestleMania III, and you managed the Hart Foundation, and I get it, and I appreciated it, and I loved it. The stuff. George Steele was one of my favorite wrestlers as well. Yes. I think in '87 you had on a fun level, kind of mid card, you had like a notable series with him.
Yeah, a little run with him. Yeah.
Long story short, though, for me, just kind of seeing the news happen, just seeing it play out, just watching the looks and the sound of the people in the stands. For me, like you said, people referencing, is this guy trying to be another Danny Davis? When it was Savage and Santana with the roll of coins, the heat to me at the time as a 10-year-old watching that you had was like the same kind of heat like when the kid at Chicago Cubs game, Steve Bartman or whatever his name was, when he touched the ball by accident, like stuff like that where a whole city just deflates because of the heel going over the way that they did. I mean, up until that time, I'd never seen anything like it before.
Well, let me say this. Again, it was the greatest time in wrestling history, in my opinion. And again, if you weren't doing your job, you were replaced right off the bat. And to have lived through that is something that you live for the rest of your life. No one will ever take away from anybody on that card in WrestleMania III that we broke all records. 96,000, almost 100,000 people in one place at one night for one event was it was so extreme, unheard of, and to be part of that, be on the semi-main event and to get a win, to get a win in a crowd like that, it's overwhelming. And again, it goes back to living your dreams, and people ask me, what was it like? What was it like? Jesus, what was it like? And unless you have achieved a dream or a goal in your life that you really wanted, I can't explain it to you. All I can say it was one of the best times of my life. And until you've reached that goal, like yourself, being an announcer, being a referee, being part of wrestling, and now you got your podcast here. Hey, dreams, build them, create them, and live them. And don't let anybody take your dreams away from you because they're yours. They're your dreams, and nobody can take them away from you. And I just want to say that, I appreciate all the fans and all the people that remember us, back in that day. And I really, really have respect for everybody that comes out and at these conventions. I'm still amazed that the people come up to me and tell me stories about stuff and that I've forgotten about and how they were impressed with it. And I've had people come up that have read the book and just shook my hand and say, wow, I never thought about it that way and stuff like that. And it's a great feeling to still be part of it after 35 years.
Take Danny up on his offer. Get the book, get the signature part for free. You're saving a few dollars. You're saving almost half the price you'd otherwise spend. If you catch up with Danny again at a convention down the line, get something else signed from him then. 8x10 from WrestleMania III, roll of coins, what have you. Randy Savage action figure, Santana action figure, Danny Davis action figure, anything you want. But get the book now, because the book on the heels of this interview is going to be a real fun read. And the book, he's signing them for no extra cost. He's going to send them to you personally. So I absolutely do that. We're going to make sure that everybody has access through our social media, again, to the way that they can directly go ahead and get the book from you. And Danny, I want to thank you for all of your time today. And I look forward to getting some feedback from this interview. I think you're the first referee that we've talked with. We've talked.
Oh, that's wow! You got the best, so you did something right today.
Right? That sounds like Dangerous Danny sneaking in right there.
That's right. For the world and from the world's most famous bad guy referee. Remember, you deserve your dreams. And thank you for having me on, kid.
Thank you, Danny. I really do appreciate it.